What happens when the people in charge of justice refuse to answer the simplest question? Who gave the order? That's the moment the entire room froze. Cameras rolling, senators leaning forward, and one name sitting right in the middle of a storm of secrecy and speculation. Attorney General Pam Bondi had just been asked to explain why records connected to one of the most powerful and controversial figures in recent history were suddenly flagged, without explanation, without authorization, and without accountability. But instead of answers, all she said was, "I'm not going to discuss anything about that." That's when you could feel the temperature in the room shift.
In February, you made a public claim that the Epstein client list was, quote, sitting on my desk right now for review, end of quote. You then produced already public information and no client list at a major media event hosted at the White House. Attorney General Bondi, why did you publicly claim to have the Epstein client list waiting for your review and then produce nothing relevant to that claim?
Senator Durbin, if you listen to my entire clip on that, I said I had not reviewed it yet, that it was sitting on my desk along with the JFK files, the Martin Luther King files. And I said I had not yet reviewed it. And if you see our memo on Epstein, you will see, excuse me, our memo on Epstein clearly points out that there was no client list, our July 6th memo. You also didn't let me respond to the HIDTA question. The budget transfers $196 million for high-intensity drug trafficking areas to the Office of Justice Programs, OJP. The Justice Department will continue to administer those grants under OJP in 2026.
Going back to the Epstein files, according to another whistleblower who made a protected disclosure to my office, you pushed the FBI to review approximately 100,000 Epstein-related records on an arbitrarily short deadline in March, and the FBI was directed to flag any documents that mentioned President Trump. Nothing came of that review until July when DOJ and FBI released an unsigned memo stating, quote, there's no incriminating client list. Why was the July 7th memo unsigned?
The July 7th memo came from the FBI and the Department of Justice. Director Patel answered those questions very clear. And, you know, Senator Durbin, I find it very interesting that you refused repeated Republican requests to release the Epstein flight logs in 2023 and 2024. You fought that. Did you take money from Reid Hoffman, campaign donations, who was a huge Epstein friend? Why did you fight for years? Why did you fight to not disclose the flight logs, Senator Durbin?
I can tell you I did not refuse. One of the senators here wished to produce those logs, and I asked her to put it in writing, and she never did.
Yeah, I think Senator Blackburn would quarrel with you on that.
Well, I will quarrel with you as to Reid, somebody that you mentioned I never heard of.
Reid Hoffman.
So who gave the order to flag records related to President Trump?
To flag records for President Trump?
To flag any records which included his name.
I'm not going to discuss anything about that with you, Senator.
Eventually, you're going to have to answer for your conduct in this. And you won't do it today, but eventually you will. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
I got
Mr. Chairman.
something here.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, since Senator Durbin referred to me, I would really appreciate the opportunity to correct the record.
Proceed.
Because Senator Durbin knows I repeatedly asked for those flight logs. I brought up the subpoena. You even shut down the committee because you didn't want that, and you know I submitted that in writing, and you continue to misrepresent that, and I am not going to let that record stand.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Senator Durbin.
I just want to make it clear that the reason the committee business ended was that your side invoked the 2-hour rule. Point number 2 is I asked you if you wanted any documents like flight logs to put it in writing. You never did.
Yes, sir, I did. And your staff knows that I did.
No,
we'll submit once again
send me a copy
the information to you. We've done that several times, but we'll be happy to once again send it to you. I think your staff doesn't.
Because this wasn't just about one question. It was about a pattern of silence, of deflection, of carefully orchestrated confusion that's haunted the Epstein investigation from the very start. And when Senator Dick Durbin pressed her again demanding to know who ordered the flagging of those files. It became clear that this story ran far deeper than anyone in that chamber was ready to admit. Back in February, Bondi stood before the cameras and made a statement that turned heads across Washington. She claimed the Epstein client list was sitting on my desk right now for review. That single sentence lit up headlines. People thought maybe, finally, the truth was about to surface. But when the moment came, when Bondi appeared at a high-profile event to show the supposed evidence, what she produced was nothing new. Just public information that had already been released years ago. No client list, no names, no breakthroughs. It was a moment that left even her own allies looking uneasy. Why make such a bold claim if there was nothing to show? Why tease transparency only to deliver the same recycled documents? When you promise the truth and produce nothing, the question stops being what you know and becomes what you're hiding. And then came the whistleblower. A protected disclosure sent directly to congressional investigators revealed something shocking. Bondi had allegedly pushed the FBI to review more than 100,000 Epstein-related records on a rushed, almost impossible timeline. Agents were told to flag any document that mentioned a certain high-profile figure's name. No context, no limits, just flag everything. That might sound procedural, but think about what that means in practice. Tens of thousands of federal work hours redirected. Agents pulled off violent crime and narcotics cases to comb through decades of material, all because someone wanted to review politically sensitive files. And when the review ended, the official word from the Department of Justice was that no incriminating client list exists. But here's where it gets strange. The memo announcing that conclusion? It wasn't signed by anyone. No initials, no dates, no accountability. Just an unsigned statement claiming that everything was fine, nothing to see here, move along. An unsigned memo is like a ghost. It exists on paper, but no one owns it. And in Washington, that's usually the first sign that someone is running from the truth. Who did order the flagging? Who decided which files to rush through and which to bury? Durbin wanted names. He wanted clarity. But Bondi's answers only deepened the mystery. She pivoted, accused others of hypocrisy, even dragged unrelated topics into the discussion. She talked about old letters, budget transfers, and her department's funding, as if that would somehow explain why a whistleblower was claiming political interference inside the FBI. And then, just when it seemed like things couldn't get more chaotic, another senator jumped in, Marsha Blackburn, furious that her own efforts to subpoena Epstein's flight logs were being misrepresented. What followed was one of the most heated exchanges seen in a Senate hearing all year. Both sides accused each other of blocking transparency. Each claimed the other was lying about who refused to release what. The result? Deadlock. No flight logs. No accountability. Just another political firefight that conveniently distracted everyone from the question that started it all. Who gave the order? But buried in the shouting was a pattern. A pattern that stretched back years. Long before this hearing, long before Bondi held her current position. When she served as Florida's Attorney General, she'd already crossed paths with the Epstein case once before. Back then, investigators had been closing in on a plea deal so soft it shocked even veteran prosecutors. A deal that allowed Epstein to avoid serious prison time, avoid naming co-conspirators, and avoid the kind of scrutiny that could have exposed his network. Many of the same officials who were supposed to protect victims looked the other way. And now, years later, some of those same names reappeared in federal roles tied to the very agencies overseeing the current review. It's the kind of loop that keeps repeating itself. People investigate their own failures and call it justice. When oversight becomes self-policing, truth has no chance. That's what makes the whistleblower's role so critical here. Without insiders willing to speak up, we would never know about the 100,000 records, the rushed timeline, or the unexplained flagging. These disclosures gave Congress leverage, real evidence that something inside the process had gone off the rails. It's because of those documents that senators like Durbin could connect dots the public never saw. Whistleblowers are often treated like troublemakers. But in reality, they're the last line of defense between power and accountability. When an entire institution bends to political pressure, it takes one person breaking silence to remind everyone else that truth still matters. And in this case, their courage exposed more than just bureaucratic dysfunction. It showed how easily the machinery of justice can be redirected, not toward finding the truth, but toward protecting those in power. When Durbin looked across that table at Bondi, you could see it in his expression. This wasn't about party politics anymore. It was about whether the Department of Justice could still be trusted to tell the truth. Because if the same people promising transparency are the ones signing or not signing the memos, the system collapses on itself. That's why the unsigned July memo matters. That's why the missing flight logs matter. Every unanswered question chips away at public trust. Every delay sends the same message. The rules don't apply to everyone equally. And it's not just about Epstein. It's about a pattern that keeps repeating in case after case, where investigations stall, evidence disappears, and officials deflect behind classified reviews or ongoing inquiries. The very language of secrecy becomes the shield that keeps the truth buried. But hearings like this, tense, messy, uncomfortable, are how the truth starts to surface. They show that oversight still exists, even if it's slow and imperfect. Durbin's persistence in that room wasn't just political theater, it was the process working as it should. Asking hard questions, demanding written answers, putting public officials on record so their words can't vanish into the fog of bureaucracy later. And when Bondi refused to answer, when she dodged, pivoted, and shifted blame, it said more than any admission could have. Silence in the face of accountability is its own confession. That's the part most viewers miss when they see short clips online. This wasn't a shouting match. It was a power struggle between truth and control. Between those who want to reveal and those who want to conceal. In the end, this story isn't just about what's in the Epstein files. It's about what the fight over those files reveals. How fragile transparency really is, how easy it is for power to twist procedure into protection, and how oversight depends entirely on the few people willing to keep asking uncomfortable questions. Because when government agencies start deciding which records to flag, which names to protect, and which memos to sign or ignore, it's not just about one investigation. It's about the integrity of the entire system. The American people deserve more than press releases and unsigned statements. They deserve to know who made the decisions, who gave the orders, and why so many promises of transparency end up buried under pending review. That's why this hearing matters. It shows the gap between what officials say in front of cameras and what really happens behind closed doors. And it reminds us that truth isn't revealed by chance. It's dragged into the light by persistence, documentation, and public pressure. As this investigation continues to unfold, remember this. Every unanswered question is an opportunity for accountability. Every whistleblower who steps forward chips away at the wall of silence. And every senator who refuses to back down, no matter their party, proves that oversight can still work, even in a system designed to resist it. The Epstein files are more than a case. They're a mirror. They reflect how power shields itself, how bureaucracy buries responsibility, and how easily truth can be twisted into narrative. But there's one thing power still can't control: attention. The more people watch, question, and demand answers, the harder it becomes to hide behind process. That's why awareness matters. That's why channels like this exist, to keep these stories alive, to break down what really happened behind the headlines, and to make sure no unanswered question quietly disappears. So if you believe the truth should never stay buried, if you think accountability shouldn't depend on who's in power, then don't just watch. Join the movement that's demanding answers. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share this story with someone who still believes justice means something. Because the more eyes on the truth, the less room there is for it to be hidden.